Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucozade and Solomon Bespoke.
This is Manhood. Thank you for once again staying with us, looking at us, listening to us as we talk and we delve into topics that affect all of us men. There are a lot of issues out there and a lot of things that we really need to get to the bottom of and constantly have that dialogue and discussion. And the most important thing that we try to share on this podcast is you're not alone. This is a space of courage. Today we're talking about fine and angry. You know, these two emotions that you hear all the time, whether it's a woman who says men could either one of these two emotions, and whether it's said in a sarcastic way or a real way, all that we're going to really unfold today, as well as men also looking at other men and determine whether you're just fine or angry. Even as I'm saying it, I don't know whether I'm saying it being fine or whether I'm being angry about it. But the topic, fine or angry. So Johanse, IODK, Behavior Change Consultant, Stephen Leon. Bring me back up there, producer. So we're talking about this book. He's the author of this book, Respond with Class, a very good read where he talks about his journey from being in the darkness to the light that he's found now. So we'll be chatting about that book as we go along. And to his right, Dr. Niles, Keron, academic, boss behind Freetown Collective, friend, so many other things. So really big team here today that I'm going to sit back and learn, and honored as always and excited just for the information that's going to come out here today, because I have a lot pent up maybe that I want to find out the why behind certain things. So gents.
Well, let me start. Everybody here, when you say you're fine, what you mean by that? Not what fine mean, what you mean by that.
I would say for me, when I say that I am fine, I am saying, let me work this out internally. Let me just work this out internally.
Not bother anybody with it.
Yeah, not bother anybody with it. And I think, that just comes from, there's something innate in all men, I believe, that tells us that we are supposed to be fine and we're not supposed to bother anybody. We are supposed to be strong. We are not supposed to be weak. We are not supposed to be depressed. We are just supposed to be fine because we're supposed to be fine for everyone else.
You think that come from innate? That come from inside?
Or learned. But before we go around, as you said, what people mean by fine. Mm-hmm. I want us to go by the understanding of what we want to talk about here today. So it's not necessarily what we believe when we say we're fine. It's when we're told, or people say men in general are either fine or angry. What do women look at us and say as men or other men and say he's fine? What is their determination of what that is? Because we know we have several emotions. But to someone else, it's like, he's fine, but you're not fine. You have those emotions. You are sad. You have rage. You can't be upset by something. There are other things that are happening with you that are multifaceted, that are multidimensional. Right. But it's all boxed into, he fine.
Right.
So he okay.
So that's why I'm asking, so every man could help unravel the mystique. Because every man might mean the same thing. Or we might find that out. So, Keron, where's your fine?
That's a good question, because I like the fact that you're starting with introspection. I don't use the term. So you'd very, very rarely hear me say, I'm fine. And I don't always ask people, how are you, unless I mean it. At least I try my best not to say, like, how are you? And I don't like when people just ask me, how are you, as a pleasantry. Because I try to stay away from lying, So when people ask me, how are you, I tend to say, I'm alive, and I'm grateful for being alive.
Fine is also a metaphor. It's not necessarily always literal. Because you see how he had a meaning to the word fine. For some people, it is I day, right? Some people, it could be, I'm alive, So that's why I'm asking it like that, because I think we all wouldn't share exactly how we feel with everybody. Depends who it is. If somebody asks you and you're not really close to them, you wouldn't really share. But at the same time, you're not real good or you're good. So we have this word or this sentiment that we share that what you said is that I mightn't be the best right, but I'm working on it. Or I don't want to share right now, but I'm working on it. So that for some people it could be fine. It could be, I don't know if the your alive is that also.
My life is, I'm happy to not be dead. So that's literally what that means.
All right. All right. Well, at least I'm not dead, right?
Yeah, I'm not dead. I mean, came close to death last year, so I'm just happy that I get to see another day. I get to see my kids another day. Like every day, I'm grateful to be here. So I think when people ask me, I say like I'm alive and I'm grateful. That's literally what I mean. I literally mean like I'm really happy just to be here. Make the most of every day. But to me, when people say that they're fine, I thought fine just meant you're okay, but I never actually thought of fine as a metaphor.
Where's your fine, Robert?
But fine, again, I want to bring it back to when I say people, it's not so much what I say, it's what is interpreted by someone saying he is fine. It's an assumption as to what he's allowed to be going to.
But what do
to
you
go
mean
through.
by it though?
But again, so I know when you ask, how are you? I know that's coming with a 4-part question, right? So Keron will break down and he will say, yeah, but what about this? What about that? What about break this down for me, score it? I'm like, oh my God, I'm going through this academic thing here. but you see, it's very purposeful. It's very interested and focused so that I know he genuinely cares and is also helping me introspect by my responses. And the questions that he's asked me that I still haven't been able to give him an answer to because I'm still in limbo as to, what's the meaning of life type thing, not those specific questions. But I take Stephen's point when someone says, how are you, or what is happening, or even if they don't in a particular scenario, whether it be something I say or whether it be something, how I act, it will be simply, I'm fine. Because that fine is simply, I'm going to deal with my own shit. I'm going to figure it out. I don't want to either bother you. I know you're not sincere. There's so many other things. It's like, how are you? And someone walks off. They don't expect that you're going to stop them and go, boy, I have no money, or this happened to me, or my girl do this. People aren't really interested. So let's cut all that out and just, I'm going to get over it. And I think men, in general, are expected to do that. And I don't want to cut straight to the fine or angry because I want us to really unravel that. But I want to have that discussion really through this book, right? Because this book, Respond with Class, as we talk about being fine, and Stephen said it, where he spoke about he doesn't want to bother people, is what led him to what starts the book off, which is attempted suicide.
That is correct. And before I talk about the attempted suicide, I want to say something else with regards to how we were talking about fine and what it means to me. I graduated from that question to the point of whenever anyone asks me how I am, I always say excellent. Always. No matter how I feel, no matter what I'm going through, I do it. But I don't do it because I'm faking. I do it because I believe in the mental law of correspondence. I do it because I believe in positively speaking. I do it because I believe in calling the situation what I want it to be and not necessarily what it is, because I believe in the power of the spoken word. Now I do. But when I was 18 years, I obviously didn't feel that way. And that's I didn't have the knowledge that I have now. So at 18 years, going on 19 years, I gave up on life totally. And I was one of those people that made the decision to take my life. And it was not a bluff. I was not trying to get attention. I was not crying wolf. I had actually gotten to the point where I made up my mind to kill myself. I knew exactly how I was going to do it. But I had an experience that stopped me. And the experience that I had was that God spoke to me. Right in that moment. Right as I was about to do it, I heard a voice in my left ear, almost as if someone snuck up on the side of me and said, I am with you always. And that was it. Poof, gone. And everything changed from there. Everything changed from that moment. And I think that one word that was spoken to me quietly as I sat by myself, because I was sitting under a street light in Strathclyde Avenue in Cascade at 1 o'clock in the morning, and by myself totally. And I think that God realized that I made up my mind so clearly and that no one was around, that he himself had to come and stop me. And today I realize it's for a purpose. And that's why it's an honor for me to be here today with you, men.
You said got you to that point. And again, the book talks about that journey from that moment to where you are now. And I know you start off by saying you say you're excellent because it's, they say the universe, your words have power, what you put out there. So we will get to that point. What I want to have that discussion is in that not bothering, when you say you were at the point of no return, at that point, as far as you were concerned, this was it. Can you talk a bit about what got you there? I know you spoke about, for all those who don't know, Stephen is 6'7". That many would think to themselves, that's great. Most people, height is everything. And there could be no negative in that, except the fact that in you growing up, it was a negative.
It was a negative. As a matter of fact, I'm 6'7", and I hated being this tall when I was that age because I was 100 pounds lighter. So I was literally like a beanpole, and I was very, very insecure. And what led me to thinking about suicide is a number of things, and I'll just go through it briefly. But the main thing was that I grew up in Cascade. And many times when I tell people that, they say, ooh, Cascade, because they think it's a big shot area. But I didn't grow up in the big shot area of Cascade. I grew up in poor Cascade. I grew up a hill called Mount Tololo in the bush. As a matter of fact, when I was very young, my house was made of something called tapia, which is mud and grass. And I did not have an inside toilet. I had an outhouse. I did not have a bathroom. I used to bathe out of oil drums that I had on the side of my house that caught rainwater. And so I grew up very poor. My mom, God bless her, she's still alive. She's 93 and in her right mind. But back then, she started working when she was 13 years old, and she worked as a maid all of her life. And this is very pivotal here. My father died when I was 9 years old. So I didn't have a father from 9 years old. And so it was just my mom taking care of me, which meant that we had very, very limited resources for anything at all. As a matter of fact, I used to get $5 to go to school. I went to St. James Secondary and then Trinity College after. And for 5 years, when I went to St. James Secondary, I walked home from school because I didn't have enough money to travel. And then, believe it or not, when I went to Trinity College, if I didn't catch the bus or if I didn't get a lift, I walked from Mocha in Trinity to Cascade. So all of these things culminated because my mom was a Christian as well. And she would make me go to church every Sunday. She was one of those Pentecostal Christians. And if you're familiar with the Pentecostal church, when you go to church on a Sunday, it's not like Catholic Mass where you go from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock.
4 or 5 hours.
4 or 5 hours in church. So I hated my life. I hated God. I hated church. I hated my girlfriend, who is now actually my wife and the mother of my 6 children. She was my girlfriend at that age. And this is the point that I want to release here. None of them, no one knew that I was going to kill myself. I was quietly going to kill myself. No one had an idea. I sat under that streetlight and I said, everyone is just going to find me tomorrow. And everyone is going to feel sorry for me. Because I felt like no one understood me. I felt like no one understood what I was going through at that age. I grew up with rich friends. They all had everything, and I would see them with everything. I did not go to any of my graduations, Form 5 or Form 6, because my mom couldn't buy a shoes, far more a suit. And all of that just drove me to the point of feeling frustrated. I was underweight. I was insecure. I had no money. I could not go out with my friends. I could not go to parties. And as a matter of fact, that night that I was going to kill myself, they all came back from a party. Back then, we had a club it used to be Valley View Hotel, and it was a club called Coconut.
Coconuts, Coconuts, yes.
And my same friends, they came back from Club Coconuts, like around 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And you remember we used to call it nuts. They came back
Nuts,
from
yeah,
nuts, and it
yeah,
was
yeah.
the Thursday night. It was a Thursday night.
That's UE night.
UE nights.
Yeah.
And they came back and they drove into the avenue. Now where I sat under the street light, the reason why I was sitting under the street light is because I had to tote water. I didn't have running water where I live. And I had to tote water, and I did it deliberately late at night because I didn't want my friends, my same friends, to see me toting water. Like they did not even know where I live. All they knew was that Stephen lived somewhere up the hill in the bush. But I had to come down to the avenue where we played football and cricket and tote water from by the standpipe there. I used to tote water in something called a pigtail bucket. You all know what a pigtail bucket is, right? Yeah.
No.
It's a white bucket with a red cover that you get in the market where they would keep freshly cut pigtails and sell it wholesale. So my mom used to get a number of those buckets, and I was the only boy, the only son, and it was my mom and my two sisters. So I had to tote water for everyone. And this is after walking from Trinity College to Cascade. That would take me 3 hours. I would leave school like 2:30, 3 o'clock, and reach home at 6 o'clock. And then after that, I would have to tote water and then go to school the next day. So
No wonder you only 100 and something pounds. Yep.
I was very fit. And I grew up on fruits. I'm glad that you mentioned that as well. Back then, I thought it was a bad thing growing up on fruits, but my mom planted a lot of fruit trees, and we had everything, all the traditional Trinidadian fruits like guava and cashew. I ask young people all the time now, have you ever eaten a cashew? I know they eat cashew nuts, but have you ever eaten the fruit, a cashew, or a sapodilla, So my mom planted all those fruit trees, and I would live on fruits. I used to eat food like a meal, sometimes once a week. Just on a Sunday, she used to make sure, like at least on a Sunday, I would get, like a little macaroni pie and stew chicken and callaloo, And during the week, sometimes, I would get food and stuff like that. But most of the time, it was bread, butter, and Kool-Aid. So all of this just culminated, and I was like, I had enough. And I wouldn't say that I was an atheist because I believe in God, but I was definitely agnostic. I didn't think that God could speak to us. So when he actually came and spoke to me, I was like, wait a minute. Back then I think we had about maybe 5 billion people on the planet, and I'm thinking 5 billion people on the planet, and you left and came and spoke to me. And it's from that moment I started asking the question, why? That question that we all ask ourselves over and over. Why am I here?
When you had, before you had that moment, before you had God come and say, I am with you always, is there, in that moment, did you consider, you said that that in the morning when they found you, they would feel sorry.
Yes.
But is there a part of you, clearly, you were going to do it, where you would then focus on your mother and focus on what pain you would cause people, or is it at that point you were like, you no longer factor anything, you're just driven to self, to me?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned my mom, because I dedicated the book to my mom, and she was actually the why as to why I actually finished that book, believe it or not. But in the moment that you're talking about, I hated her. I one of the things I spoke about in the book,
Is that because of blame? You blamed her for the scenario?
Yeah. I felt, as a teenager, you're thinking, why am I seeing all my friends with nice cars and nice homes, swimming pools? I would go by them and bathe in the swimming pool and stuff like that. And then I have to go back home and bathe out of an oil drum that was full of mosquito larvae. So I don't know if any of you ever bathe in rainwater. Have you ever? Yeah. It's not, it's a very greasy experience. And but I blamed her at the time. But after the experience, and after trying to find purpose in life, I realized that, she was doing her best. She was doing her absolute best just to get me $5 to go to school. I got $5 to go to school. $3 was for transportation to get to school, $1 for a pie and a juice, and that was it. And I had to walk home. So I all of that had me so bitter, but after the fact I realized, she was really doing her best. She didn't know better. She started working at the age of 13 years.
And now you're a father of 6. We're taking a short break to come back and talk a bit more about the book, a bit more about that journey, a bit more about
Yes.
fine or angry, and for people to know that where you say you are now and speaking it into being about excellence, and you are excellent, back then, and people who aren't there are saying they're fine because they don't want to bother someone, which then led, we're happy you're here now,
Yes.
but the story could have been different. So we take a short break. When we come back, we talk about fine or angry, and angry.
This is manhood, and we're discussing the 2 emotions that people think men have, which is fine and angry. And Stephen, what you're saying before in terms of that process, getting to that stage. So, one in my professional experience, and even in my personal experience as a man, suicide ideation. So let's look at it at a scale from low to high, right? High being suicidal, whereas I think about it, I plan it in mind, and sometimes even attempt it. But it have suicidal ideations. Let's go with the lowest level, right? All of us, right, have had some sort of suicidal ideation before. So let me explain. Let's say we reach a situation where we don't have the solution for it. We will say something like, I wish I wasn't born, yes? I wish I could just disappear.
Yeah.
I wish I could go and sleep and don't wake up.
We have a
Right?
death wish.
Yeah, but death wish I would say might be a little more here. But we have those, let's say random, I didn't study for a test, I might get licks, I can't, my girlfriend getting vexed with me and I don't know how to get better. We have, but the more we think about it, the frequency now, it don't matter the situation, even if it's seemingly small, we start to go to the meter. And then if it's something a little more impactful, let's say it's something with school important to me at this time, or work, or my family, right? We start going up here, right? Now, our subconscious mind is programmed by repetition. A subconscious mind don't know right or wrong. All it knows is what it hearing all the time, seeing all the time. So if I thinking I want to disappear, not necessarily I saying dead yet, I'm not even using that, but I want to disappear. I don't know what to do. I wish after a while, that's how your subconscious mind starts to see things. So now, you pass and you bounce your toe. That now is viewed through the brain of I want to disappear. So we go in with progressions. So even help people who going through it. And sometimes, it has some people, the wind blow too hard and they start again. And you went, well, what are you going on so far? But that is not a in the moment thing. That is something
Right.
that was building. And then now I
Pressure
come in
cooker.
to how the male brain, because you all know the male brain versus the female brain is physiologically different. We men, and I'm just going men for now, we men have more connections in each side of our brain, not connecting the two. So that's why generally it's say men have a one-track mind. I'm sure you all heard that already. So when we hold on to our thought, the thought travels through, and then it becomes mature. And I'm using mature lightly, because when that thought becomes mature, it has nothing that will turn you back. You know, to have we as men, we know, when we focus on something and we want that, nothing going to stop you. So if you program yourself with suicidal ideations, after a while, there's a point where dies it, no matter what. And Robert, you asked the question before, even if something, I think my mother, my wife, my children, nothing could turn me back from that point.
So when I say death wish, there's just a couple things I want to unpack there. When I say death wish, I'm talking about where people, who like adrenaline junkies, people say, hey, you have a death wish because you are so intent on doing these things. It's not like it's a conscious, I want to kill myself, but you're doing things that could really likely lead to death. But you're not, you think that that's somehow living by going to the brink of
yes, and that's a more, again, I'm using generalization because not every man is the same, not every woman is the same, right? But that generally also is a male thing, because we men are more stimulated by dopamine than women, right? In general, again, it's a generalization. So if something is not giving us, for want of a better word, a dopamine hit, right? We we wouldn't want to do it. So that's why when you have a boy sitting in class, I want to find something that is interesting to me. So it's not, and I'm saying this because this is even in my work with boys with ADHD, right? It is that it's boring to me. It's not that something is wrong with you. So when a man leading a life, whatever life it is, that is not interesting to him, after a while it's bottled up and I just need to do something to feel something. So it's not necessarily a wishing to be done. I know that's not what you mean. It's not that a wishing to die, I just a wishing to feel something based on that was interesting to me.
So just real quick again, there are two other things that you said in there. And one is when you referred to disappearing. And I know before we even started the film, we were discussing the fact that when you sat in the back, and I was telling you that it's weird, and that in my home there's several areas that are very conducive and be a lot more comfortable for me to go and have you sit down and reflect or to remove myself from the noise, but yet still I choose the most awkward spots to. In this case, in the pantry, sitting down on 2 cases of juice, behind a washing machine, and it brings me comfort to be there. Or I was telling you that, hosting, whether it be a Miss World or any of these some of these events that I host, I find the weirdest places to sometimes just behind scaffolding or behind the lights, and you just sit down in this area, and it gives you comfort to remove yourself from the activity that's happening. You were saying that's a man thing.
Yeah, and the irony is the comfort is a equilibrium or homeostasis based on the dopamine. So let me explain. So let's just say we in this room 10 hours a day, right? As exciting as somebody could come and say this room is, after a while it's not exciting to us anymore. So sitting in the pantry on a case of juice is something different. So your brain reads that as, hey, look, something new. It gives you some dopamine. But the irony is sometimes we think dopamine is not something that will give us comfort. But it's like this. If I don't have, if my belly empty and then I get food, it makes me calm. So the thing that stimulates me, I finally get something else, something that brings me some stimulation, so I be calm. So people say, why he doing that? Why, especially boy children, why he want to climb up there? Why he hopping on? And I get all the time, especially when moms bring the children to the office. Why? And I say, leave him. Just leave him. He going. Once he's not destroying anything, leave him, because as men, we need that stimulation a lot more often. And when I say stimulation, something different out of the norm.
I want to get back to the book and the journey. And Keron, I wanted to bring you in here. You're kind of quiet in the corner there, like you're having your own moment. But I want to address one more thing where you spoke about the meter. A lot of times you hear suicide, whether attempted or actualized, is, as you mentioned, even you, Stephen, was a build-up. And there's also chemical imbalances.
No.
You could say it, it's a podcast, it don't matter. Your mic ain't working?
No, your mic, you were trying to bring your mic closer to your mouth.
Oh, we tell my brain, okay. Yeah, I mean, we talking. I mean, we don't hide nothing on this show, If you had a cough, you had a fall, So you talk more beyond the point. And in that meter, there's chemical imbalances that leads to it. It's a build-up that leads to it. Are there moments where you could be real good at this point? Everything is happening, and then within a moment, not a build-up, not through a chemical imbalance, have thoughts of suicide that you actually attempt and it's happened? Is that in your experiences?
I'll tell you something that's funny. Even though I wrote this book, and even though I try to inspire people to not commit suicide, the thoughts come back. And some years ago, something happened with me on the job, and I felt like I could have lost my job. And that immediately brought back those thoughts. I'm talking about immediately. I'm like literally was thinking, listen, if I lost my job, that's it. That's it. I'm
you have
done.
6 kids, you have a wife.
6 kids. How am I going to tell my wife this? You know what? I'm just going to find somewhere, at the top of a building and jump off. you know, and that happened. And I want to go back to something in terms of the build-up, right? One of the things I didn't mention is that I was also being bullied in school, and that was taking a toll on me as well, because being 6'6" and being bullied by somebody half your height, and I went to a mixed school, boys and girls, and this guy used to have me inside. I couldn't come out of the class, lunchtime, recess time, anything. I just had to stay in the classroom. And then when school was over, I literally had to look out, peep out, look for him, make sure he wasn't around, and take off. That was something else that I was going through. But what actually, as we say, broke the camel's back, I think, that night, was the fact that I was going into, I think it was upper 6. And it was the middle of the term, and I needed to get some books or something. And my mom just didn't have the money to get it. And that's when I said, you know what, this I just had enough. I had enough, you know, and I sat that night under the street light. And the funny thing is this, when my friends came back, I didn't finish this. When my friends came back from the party and they saw me sitting under the street light, they came up to me and they said, "Hey, Stevie," well, that's like my home name. "Stevie, what are you doing sitting here by yourself?" And the moment they asked me that question, I broke down. I'm talking about like snot and everything, just burst. And I literally felt like I cried out, like 18 years of pent up stress and frustration.
And hiding.
You
couldn't be yourself.
Couldn't be myself. And I told them, the funny thing is I told them, I said, "Listen, just leave me alone. I'll be fine. I'm fine. Leave me alone. I'm okay." And they left. They left and they all went home. And again, I was just like, you know what? Okay, you're going to find me here tomorrow and everybody's going to feel sorry for me. That was
Because I want to pause there. Keron, Johan say, that is the general, how are you? Nobody's really interested or is thinking, you're fine.
Yeah.
The signs are there. Sometimes, a lot of times, the signs are all around us, apart from the fact that I'm asking you, you know, it's scary to think that you can go from really being fine or okay to something happening that triggers you so much that you could commit suicide. But I'm talking about in the build where people are so caught up, and this is not a blame thing. This is not blaming your brethren for what's happening to you. This is not blaming the fact that they had a good life and their parents worked hard and your mother did all that she could with what she could to give you what you have.
Yeah.
But it's a matter of people are caught up in their own and we adapt by not wanting to bother other people because you kind of may know, hey, he may be going through his own, I don't want to add to that. And therefore we don't say anything. And there are times that even now, I've had a show when I had Keron and Luke and these guys on, when I thought I was leaving to go to London, and I was in a rough place, like asking, what is going on here? And they came together and have a group chat, call it nation building, and it keeps me
Every now and again.
keeps me honest, keeps them honest, in certain ways, where fine is not, but I would still find, like even if Johanse asked me things, I would still find that I'll go that I would say fine, because either you don't have the time to engage, like how, for example, Keron will ask several questions, you don't want to bother someone, or you simply don't want to give the information because you may be feeling embarrassed by it.
Or repeating it is also painful for you. Right? Now putting it that way because I enjoy this because I realize, at least in my experience of the world, many people don't really take time to understand a man, you know? And we don't take time to understand. Now, I'm using the word male as in general, but also ourselves, because of course all of us different. But if we're going from a physiological point of view, right? And I think we had discussed it on the show already, but in a different context. The pain center of our brain, a male brain, which is the amygdala, right, is, I believe, 5 to 10 times larger than a woman, right? So which means the capacity to feel pain for a man is bigger, right? So therefore, sometimes when they ask me, how are going on, what going on with you? To even repeat what's going on with me for something, that in your brain brings up the pain. Because sometimes your brain can't differentiate what is real or what's not. If you sit down thinking about something, your brain thinks it's real. If you feel what it is. So asking a man, what going on with you? Tell me nothing. Sometimes to rehash all of that in itself is painful. But what is more pragmatic is, let me figure out the solution. Let me figure out what to do, or let me not think about it so that I get back the energy so that now I can deal with it. So it's not that a man don't like to well, yes, a man don't like to talk because it is no benefit to me. It doesn't seem a benefit to me at that time. It's not that men hide the feelings or anything like that, but in terms of how your brain is, it is more pragmatic just to go to the solution.
But like you said, give you enough energy to deal with it doesn't mean that you're dealing with. It's almost like the effect or the plaster, but you've not dealt with the root cause of the problem because we're just trying to survive. Those cortisol levels, we're just trying to survive through something. You mentioned it at the start about not wanting to bother people, and you just wanted to gather enough to survive through what you're going through. And I remember you also telling me that you didn't want children, and then God has a funny way, you end up with 6 blessings. But again, when you're thinking about those moments, you're not focusing on their lives or what you're going to do to them or to a wife. It's what you're going through as a man. We go back to self and what the pressures of a man is to provide. Because I heard that pain in your voice. I think about myself on so many occasions where people see my role, doing this for 20 years, interviewed most celebrities or some would say accomplished, and yet month to month, on many occasions, and people throw it all, you must have money. And in my mind, I'm like, well, I should have money, after doing these things. But the pressure's on there to provide. And when I think, could I be sending my son to a better school? Should I be able to do this? So when they may come to me and you can't afford it, you feel, as they say on so many occasions, less of a man because of the pressures and the inferences to do that. So I could imagine when you say the thought of you losing your job and now having 7 mouths to feed apart from yourself.
It brought me back to that place, and I'll be honest. Like just the other day, I was having a conversation with my wife. We've been together for 38 years, married for 28, and I was telling her the other day, I'm talking about this year. I was saying to her, I said, babe, you're looking at me, because she's looking at me and she's asking me the question, you okay? And what do we say most of the time? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm okay. Something bothering you? No, I'm all right. I'm okay. But that day I said to her, I said, babe, a lot of women, a lot of people just don't realize the pressure men are under to be men.
To be men.
To be men, just to be men. The expectation of us is what just have us sometimes just sitting and staring because you're thinking of everything that you need to take care of, and all the T's you need to cross and all the I's you need to dot, and everything that you need to have in place, for you as my wife, for our 6 kids, and what's going to happen next, when they come out of college, and this one is going into college, and, being the provider, being the man of the house, and
the mentor.
Yeah, the mentor, the stable person and everything, the protector, the provider, everything.
And you trying to keep your together.
And I'm just trying to keep everything together. And people, and that's why I mentioned, people think, like you said, they look at you and they think, oh, sales manager of the Hyatt, author extraordinaire, married for 28 years, have 6 children, man, have it together. And they have no idea that I'm going home and sitting down, or I'm sitting in my car sometimes after work and just crying. Why am I crying? Because the pressure of having to be a man is just there. It's just there. But the good thing I could say is this. After that experience that I had, I have to go back to that experience of God speaking to me, because that is what anchored me. That is what anchored me. And that's why I tell my wife all the time, I said, I don't know how people can live without a God consciousness or without God in their lives. Sometimes when I talk to men, they don't want to hear it. They're like, it doesn't have to be God. But I tell them, I said, listen, as far as I'm concerned, and in this life that we live in, and the pressure that we have to face in terms of being men and delivering, I cannot do it without God. And I'm so thankful that he came into my life and spoke to me and made me realize even more how real he is, because I was teetering because all of us at some point question sometimes even God's existence based on what we're going through. Like, why me? Why am I going through this? Like, how could this be happening? You know, I'm trying my best. I'm doing everything that I'm supposed to do. I'm not perfect. I am not perfect. I wrote a book, but I'm not perfect. And I wrote about my imperfections in the book because I want people to understand and I want people to realize that, hey, even though you are imperfect and you live in a world that demands perfection, you're still imperfect. But if you're able to hold on to the supreme, able to hold on, I'm not talking about going to church, I'm talking about having a relationship, a serious relationship, a one-on-one relationship with God, because God, I believe, is the only person that can give us men the peace that we need in the midst of life and life's adversities and everything that we face as men. It cannot come from drinking. It cannot come from more women. It can't come from smoking. It can't come from weed. That's temporary. If it is that we're going to survive this life and go out on top, we need God.
I'm not going to the break until Keron, because I know Keron have stories behind this. In his mind, he's saying amen. He has gone through very,
Yes.
very similar stories,
Yes.
and I want to hear Keron's story, and then we go to the break.
All right. Funny you say that. I was just like, when is the next break so I could go to the toilet? That was what I was thinking as I was sitting down here. Interesting when you was talking about me being silent. You know how you talking about being in a different place? You saw me sitting down here. I was just in my own scaffolding, just being like, yeah, it's just good to just sit down and listen and take it in. It's something different from, I talk for a living. You know, I'm a lecturer, you know. So that's this active evidence of what Johansson was just saying. It's the same thing as me being on a creator juice just now, just taking in everybody, listening to the conversation. I do have a few things to add. Number one was really interesting, and sometimes when men talk about how hard it is to be men, sometimes women hear that as it's not hard to be a woman. And so I just want to call out one thing really quick. This is not a comparison thing. It's not Oppression Olympics. It's not like it's hard for us, it's not hard for you. That's not what's being said at all. That's the first thing. The second thing is, sometimes when my wife asks me, so how was your day? Same thing he said about your amygdala. I don't want to tell you about my day because I'm going to have to relive everything that I just lived once already. And living it once was quite fine. You understand? And we had to find a way to share life with people. So that's the other interesting thing. The third point I wanted to make, and I'm making a number of them really quickly. I'll land on one of them shortly, but the third point I wanted to make was about the complexity of who we are. You understand? Like, nobody's any one thing, Dread. And nobody's going through any one thing either. So in the same way that, like your hands was breaking it down to, like, there's general things that all men share, then there's things to the individual. But even within the individual, there are several functions, almost like several people within the one. Like, so you're a dad, you're a newscaster, you're a journalist, and people will look at you and they'll be like, yeah, but as the man from on TV, that he real good, like, you know, he have everything. You know, that man, that cameraman, he's work for Guardian, and like he probably out there freelancing, making real money, like them men and them sorted. You know what I mean? People will always have their impressions of how good we have it. You understand? Yeah, lecturer, you're at Freetown, and then they think, but like
in that case, it's true.
I am a lecturer, and I do work at Freetown. Both of those things is true. But people look at it as though that is all. You know what I mean? But no one. It's interesting because I used to give students advice when they entered university. It was my job, and I'd meet with 176 students in 1 week. 1 year was so intense that I'd have to meet with students from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. because I was living on the Hall of Residence where they lived, and I had to get it done within a week because they had to choose their programs. But no one really thought about its impact on me. And 1 year, I tripped. Like I hit a point where I just was. It was like, I think it was the closest I've had. It was a breakdown. like the deputy head of the college had to come and find me and be like, let's just go get some cake. I'm not a cake person, but he was just like, let's go do something, because they didn't recognize me. I was just like, I was at the bottom, right? And it was like student after student after student after student coming in and being like, I want to be a doctor because I want to drive a Benz. I want to be a lawyer because I want to drive a BMW. And I was just like, even from the point of how we make young boys, and it's because it's all my manhood, the same thing exists for women and motherhood and that kind of stuff on the next side. But I want to talk about young boys for a minute, even how we kind of program them from young to view life. We program them to video labels, to be like, yeah, you could get this job. You could be where Robert, you could do what Robert doing, you could do what Johannes, you could be a psychologist, no, first thing, you could be a person that loves themselves, John. You know what I mean? Like
that sounds like a foreign language.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You could do something that's meaningful. Like, what's the difference you want to make in the world? You understand? Because you will get the job, and you'll just be so empty. Like you're in the position, like people think that you're okay, like you're flying on top of the world, but you and your stuff, no, you're on a dead end. You understand? I was talking to somebody recently, like, they're as high as they would ever get in the organization. And they hate it. They're just like, I feel like I've been underpaid or undervalued. Nobody even taking me seriously. I don't have enough money. I can't make the choices that I want to make. I can't send my child to the school I want to send them to. And I know firsthand having to tell my wife, tell that school we can't go there because I don't have that kind of money. You understand? I remember saying to them.
And that once, from the time that comes out your mouth.
Yes.
Even though they may be feeling a sense of, they may be upset by what is happening. So the child might be upset, your wife might be looking at you in a particular way. The impact it has on you, because you know what disappointment, but then again, the pressures of man, as we talk about, comes out.
Sure.
Yeah, for
Where
sure.
you go, how is it like I provide?
Yeah. And so again, it's the... No one is any one thing. And the craziness of it is things might be going great at university. I might have a great term, a great lecture, get good reviews from students. But the Freetown might not be doing well. I might have to be doing stuff with Freetown. You understand? Or Freetown, you might be going good, but my wife is having a hard time. My children might be sick at home. I may not I may have just had to tell the school, I don't have money to pay, so we had to go to a different school. Like, and because
you moving at 150%, but you're giving everybody else 30. To them, you're only giving 30%, but you're burning the candle at both ends.
And to his point, I think it was important for him to talk about the bullying, because I have bullied and I've also been bullied. You know, and the two are very directly related, but conversation for another time. The interesting thing here is it is the complexity of the different hats that we wear that make it difficult. I had a good day at work, but I don't really want to go home because I can't stand that woman. It's the complexity of maybe I should get married sooner. Maybe I should really think about this God thing. It's the maybes. It is the complexity of individuality, that it is not this one-dimensional thing that makes it sometimes difficult. So it's not just the height, it's not just the hunger, it's not just the having to walk home, it's the all that and still getting bullied, and how being bullied makes you feel, the powerlessness, the added powerlessness to all of that.
And the natural, I want that too. Because you're looking at your friends and naturally you see them with a nice sneakers or Jordans or something like that, or a swimming pool. Naturally, you want that too. Yeah. And we don't have the mindset at that point to understand money and where it comes from and all that. So naturally, you blame your parents, like, why you bring me in this world for this, or why you can't do this, and you don't have that. Your prefrontal cortex hasn't been fully developed, and you behave in a particular way that leads to something. But
so here's my...
We had to take a break.
Yeah.
But you're going to come back from the break with exactly what you're about to say.
Listen.
We're talking about fine and angry.
This is Manhood, and we're speaking about the male emotions, apparently, of being fine or being angry. Before we left, before we went on the break, we were talking about, I was sharing about the labels that we actually use to inspire young men, but inadvertently, we raise young boys chasing labels and positions. And those labels are not exclusive to just job titles of journalist and engineer. We also raise them to chase labels of Nike and Adidas and Air Jordans. And the problem is twofold. When we don't achieve those things, we feel as though we failed. And then when we achieve those things, we actually realize how empty those things actually are, all of them. So, spoiler, initial spoiler, maybe we should raise persons, boys, more purposefully. Maybe when we talk to young boys, we should say, yo, what are you actually passionate about? What's the difference you want to make in the world? Particularly now with the influence of technology being able to do many of the things that we had aspired to do, that can handle the things that human labor would do. Like right now, what are you passionate about? How do you want to shape your world? You know, what's the kind of difference you want to make?
But before you go there, Keron, you see, that's how we should raise boys.
Mm-hmm.
What about the boys that were raised like that already? What is something that we can use to break that mindset? Like, for example, no matter what we may try to do now, subconsciously we have already been raised that, so therefore that's going to be our benchmark.
Can I just remind me to come back to the second thing I was going to say on raising boys? So that's one. But remind me to come back to the second one, right? And if I forget, just say hugging too.
I wanted to forget.
You want me to forget? Good. In terms of the men who are already here, who are inevitably chasing those titles, I think there's a broad-based conversation to have related to why we're here, related to contentment, and what you're actually chasing, Jed. Because honestly, like something that Johansson said earlier about like when you give a man a target, like, you know, I thought it was just me, and maybe in some ways I might be an extreme, but I always identified with the cheetah as an animal because cheetahs are very, very quick, and I love the speed of how they just go from like thing to thing, right? But also, when I was watching documentaries, I realized that one of the narrator was saying, a cheetah would choose one deer in a herd of 100 and say, that's the deer I'm going after. It could pass 99 other deers on the way. It is going to kill that one. It's going to go for that one. And for me, like, down to when I chose the person that that was not my wife, nothing else mattered. At the point in time, I was just going to, I am going to marry this woman. That is the objective. Like when I decided I was going to get a PhD, which I decided in secondary school because I passed a URP worker on the side of the road, covered in sweat. And he looked at me and he said, young man, out here, red hard. You better go in school and study, you know. Study and book, you know. And like that man put the fear of God into my life. Like he watched me, like our eyes met four. And he just said, young man out here, hard, you know. It was like a real strong black man. I decided he would just cutting grass, covered in sweat. He say, do end up here, you know. When that man said that to me, I was just like, I wind up the grass. And I just said, I'm going to get a PhD. Like at that point, that was it.
One track mind.
And from that point, I was just like, you know.
You see, what he's saying there is you're speaking about the key to peace.
Yeah.
And that's why we men understanding ourselves like that. Because you ask how to kind of reprogram when most of us at this age already programming that way, is as cliche as this going to sound, just do what make you happy. Right? Now, that have some difficulties and complexities to it. But that is the same way with the cheetah. I want that there. It don't really matter to me because now you're taking away the distraction because our male brain, because it's one track. When we start to distract ourselves, what happens is it puts a cognitive load on us. right? And we living in a world with a whole set of bombardment. I am your Hansi, but somebody telling me to be this. My pastor say this, my priest say this, my mother say this, my father say this, the social media say this. So now I want that there using your analogy, but then everybody tell me no, you could eat this instead. You could, if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah,
So, but the
exactly.
key is, which of course has its complexity, which is easier said than done, is when a man is a simple creature. We hear that a million times. Simple mean, you see that one thing I want. Now, I could want 100 things in life, but you can't chase 100 things at the same time. You have to start with one. But someone might tell me, it's only one you're going, you're so slow. You're moving. Listen, I've been told that so many times. But what ends up happening in life is that the thing I'm moving slow with, when I get it, I accomplish it and I'm good. I don't even have to think about that anymore. And then I go to number 2 and 3. And every man have a different pace. But outside will tell you, you're moving too slow, you watch somebody, they have the car and the something already, so forth and so on. So my answer to you, to what Robert was saying, and even is, choose, you could have 100 things, you could have 100 goals, but choose one, as complex as it is, and just try your best just to finish that. But here you're choosing the goal, you're choosing it based on what you really like. So you see how you say to train young men in a different way, even as an older man. All of us here know exactly what we want to know. We know exactly what we like. We know shoes. Even though some might say, let's give an example. Jordan is the best shoe, but you might see a New Balance and ball. I really like that New Balance, If you understand what I'm saying, right?
Unpractical, on clouds.
Right.
Things
and,
like
and,
that.
And that is the simplicity of it. Hey, I rather a Chelsea boot or whatever it is, but you choose your thing. And then you just do that. And that makes it simple because now we're not chasing the FOMO, the fear of missing out. But again, I know that's difficult in the world we live in. But if, at least with one thing, and just closing my point, that's why back in the day, professions were only one thing. If a man is a
that's true.
blacksmith,
He was
his
just
son is a blacksmith. I don't even want to know how to do anything else. I become the best blacksmith I can become, and then I stick with that.
I want us to go through this book, and I have a couple things I want to say about it. But I want you to finish your point, because I did promise you that I'd remind you with regards to labels. Because now that part of it is being cleared up, I want you to finish what you were saying with regards to boys and labels.
Thank you for the reminder. This might lead you into a book. I haven't read it yet, but in addition to kind of, I love what you said, like focus on. I feel like your passions are connected to your purpose. So if you just focus on what you love doing, Jad, like I feel like you'll end up somewhere good. If you're focused on, particularly if you're focusing on like the impact you want to make, like just you want to make.
The Bible promise you that. If I use it from a biblical perspective, the Bible promise you that if you use your gift, whatever gift God give you, because it's different gifts to everybody. But once you use that, everything will be provided for you. But the world will tell you something different.
That's true.
But just to reiterate your point, go ahead.
Yeah, 100. So the other thing I would say is something that a message we put out via Freetown was hug your sons. Hug your sons. I say it one more time. Hug your sons. Because you see, like this, being able to kind of interrogate what we actually feeling, particularly when the media is telling me how to feel. Like, you should be vexed about this. You should really want this kind of woman. You should really want this. You should really. Jed, the emotional intelligence or the emotional tools, forget intelligence, that's making it sound fancy. Just the tools to know what you're feeling and to be able to understand why you're feeling what you're feeling is such a gift, Jed. Like, I underestimated what the impacts of emotional illiteracy was, Jed. Like, I did not realize how bad it could be if you don't even understand, like, why I vex? Like, why I sad? Like, why am I angry all the time, Jed? Like honestly, like, hug your sons. If you're talking about, first, that's what I'd say was to start off at a young age. But now, like, for grown men, we have to find ways of, like, being like, it don't have to be sappy, it don't have to be, but in a world where you have advertisements when you're driving on the highway, when you have social media, and then you have all these impulses telling you, this is what you should have, this is what you should feel, this is what you should be, just like the ability to interrogate self, or at least your emotions, and I'm simplifying it. Forget, interrogating your mental state. And forget, just find out why am I feeling, how am I feeling. See, that alone, if we could just start with that as a simple thing.
But why hug? Why hugging your son?
Why hug your sons? Hugging is a physical, physical. What do you looking for? Impulse is for me it's a physical trigger to be like, yo, it's comforting, or it can be unless you don't like hugs. I do have to give that disclaimer. If you hate hugs,
It's affirming.
It's affirming. You know what I mean? It's comforting. It's affirming, and it's a safety thing. Even though you're a man, like that is a safety thing, and it gives you a kind of space to be like, particularly with boys, hug your sons, like. It gives them that space to be like, yo, you're safe here, and you could be yourself.
I want to mention something really quickly with regards to that, okay? Because I'm glad he mentioned that, because something just happened last night with my son. I have one son out of the 6. It's one boy, right? He just came back from college.
6 female influencers. Okay.
And listen, as you mentioned that, I tell people, when you can manage a home with 6 women with 6 different personalities, you can manage a conglomerate. My son came back last night from college. I went to meet him at the airport. My wife was tired, and I alone went to meet him. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because when I met him, he's my height, right? And so he feels like he's big and he's a man now and everything. You know, he came back. You know, I didn't see him for over maybe 2 years. 2 years, right? And I came out of the car. He had his luggage. He had stuff in his hand and stuff like that. I took everything. I said, son, welcome back. Da, 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 da. And I got in the car and we got home. And I didn't hug him, and I felt like I missed a moment. Believe it or not.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Even if you do it after that, it's
I felt like I missed a moment, and this is
why
what
didn't do it?
I don't know.
You
The
caught
thing is,
up. You
yeah,
caught
we were
up
just
and
we were just
getting
caught
things in
up,
the
right?
car,
You know,
caught up and getting
and
home.
then after we were home and we were just talking and stuff like that, I was looking at him and I was saying, son, come on, you know, I wanted to say, son, come and give me a hug, and I still didn't do it.
Why?
And I was like, why? You know, like, why didn't? Because I'm looking at him and I'm thinking, you know, he's big now. How you feel if I hug him? But I should have done it. That's the point that I'm making. I should have done it.
Should have done
You
it.
know?
Because
And again, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because people many times look at us, right, and think that we have everything together, right? And we doing everything that we.
Sometimes the hug is for you.
Yeah, for me as well.
And so I
hug is
want to
probably
give
for me.
a quick explanation why a hug is important, right?
Right.
A hug, research show when you hug someone or you get a hug from someone, it raises your serotonin levels.
Oh, wow.
Right? Now, Robert, you mentioned before chemical imbalance. Sometimes, I mean, I'm not claiming to be a medical doctor here, but sometimes we hear chemical imbalance and we think sometimes hereditary. But chemical imbalance could occur from different experiences in life. Because
Foods, everything.
right. So serotonin, right? Men have a higher threshold, right, for serotonin than women, right? So if we at our full capacity, men are a little higher. So when we drop low on serotonin, and serotonin is the calming hormone, is the hormone that brings us back to equilibrium, right? So that's why it feels calming. That's why, so I mean we on man, right? That's why when you enter a woman, right, the words is hug you. If you understand where I'm coming from now, right?
If you're man enough.
Right. If you're mind up, even I mean again we on man, right? Even when you get a blowjob, right? It's hugging you. If
You
you're
feel like you're uncomfortable, boy. You keep
No, well,
referring to the show you on.
go.
They have a big sign behind you. You understand? They have a big lot.
let me do the thing in my way now. Right. But you understand what I'm saying? The importance of but what the hug really does, it raises your serotonin level back to at least close to where it's supposed to be. It mightn't be perfect. So I say that because even I go in with physical, sometimes even in sport, you mightn't get a hug. But the physicality of it, just brethren after you score a goal, if you understand what I'm saying, that brings us back to a certain level.
Even though you embrace people, like when you see a brethren, you hold him in like that. There's a difference between just a handshake.
Yeah,
Correct.
sure.
But I want to just quickly, I want to go into I really want us to go through a journey in the book, but just to say that I remember through COVID when the wife and son were away for a period of time. This was the time when they shut the airports. And at that point, if you were fortunate enough at that point which I was, very thankfully, to bring them in, you had to be quarantined for up to 2 weeks. So it was a period of time that I would look at. My son was then around 3, and his birthday, everything was spent away. So I saw him through that entire period. And the day that I was allowed to go and pick him up, the embrace of him jumping into me and holding me. I mean, for him, it was a comfort as well seeing his dad. But you almost do, and you see it with I do it with grown men as well, where there's almost like a dance. You ever see that when you're hugging? And women do it as well. When you hug and you just start to almost wobble side to side.
Yeah.
But I'm saying this to you to say that I remember that I know what it probably did for him, but it was 99% for me. That embrace, that feeling, I could actually feel the energy and the connection there again, and that we were back as one. So I'm saying, don't make that mistake again.
Yeah, no, definitely.
No matter,
I missed the moment.
you're never too big, because even while my dad was alive, and one of the things, Stephen, I tried to share on the show, having lost my dad, I tried to share with people on so many occasions, record your father, record just his voice, his laugh, anything at all, and your parents, not just your dad, to have that moment that you can go back to. Ask them questions, ask them difficult questions. They may be at that point that they want to share certain things with you. Ask them how things look. I'm trying my best to get a centurion on this show, because I would love to hear their journey, not just how they see it in Trinidad, but how they've seen boys and men evolve to where they are now. And therefore, what I'm saying to you, because I know that now, it's important for me to ensure that I record certain things for my son, because I know he would appreciate it later, because I know how I feel about it at this particular point. So hug your son, hug your brethrens, hug who you have to hug. But I want to go back, and before I just tell you about this, I want to actually say, as we're talking about the Bible and God, there's that, there's no testimony if there is no test. How many of your brethren, or these people that you saw back then who had what you would have seen as a better life, an author of a book? How many people could say that they've authored a book, and a book that is of top quality? And you wouldn't have been able to do this if you wouldn't have gone through your life experiences now.
Yeah.
The food that you ate back then that you might have been looking at as, why do I have this, was actually more, probably better quality than the junk food that they would have afforded at that particular point. But again, at that point, you're not seeing it like that. And a lot of that is because, what are other people thinking about me? What are those persons who are not, as you said, emotionally intelligent at that point going to do, as in ridicule you because of your circumstances? But what about if we are raising boys and men to be that, to really ask a genuine question about how are you? And would you have then been having to live through not just bullying, but the constant hiding, taking bucket of water 2 o'clock in the morning to avoid being seen? We shared a story about when people were buying Jordans. And you say that's part of where you lecture to schools now. Yeah. And your mother or your father sent you to buy what would have been called gym boots back then, or Bata. And ironically, when I went to Italy later on in life, I went to this really posh strip where the Louis Vuittons and all that are. And Bata was a store. Just said, I don't know what Bata we'll get in Trinidad, but the shoes that you get. But they do what they can. No parent is saying, I have this money here, but I'm going to buy you a Bata. But when my mother bought me that pair of Jordans, and I look back now at the sacrifice she had to make because of my bratty, you try to say, how can I now course correct like that? And I want to talk about the book. So from getting to the point where you are tempted, God says to you, I am here with you always, to know your mantra of, I am excellent. Fill in the gap for me.
Fill in the gap, no problem. So, after that experience that night of God speaking to me, I had one main question on my mind. I literally said to God, I said, listen, if it is that, because when he spoke to me, I knew in that moment that I was not supposed to kill myself again.
Right.
I felt peace. I felt a peace. And I said, listen, brother, if it is that you're going to mess up my suicide, I need to know why. I need to know why. And from that moment, I started asking the quintessential question of the ages. Who am I? Why am I here? I know there's a reason, so I need to know the reason. I never got an answer until I was 25, to be honest. And I firmly believe that at 25, God said to me, be an inspiration to others. That's your purpose. Be an inspiration to others. And, I've heard people talk about purpose over the years, and some people think that, it's based on passion. You can be passionate about something and it will make you align with your purpose and stuff like that. But I also believe that some people, there's something specific for some people. As a matter of fact, I believe there's something specific for everybody. Because, one of the things the Bible says in the book of Jeremiah is, God speaking to Jeremiah, but it's applicable to all of us. He says, before you were formed in your mother's belly, I knew you. That means that speaks to purpose. That speaks to the fact that we are here for a specific reason, every one of us. And we just need to find that. As a matter of fact, I believe that one of the reasons why we sit and stare at the ceiling many times at night before we fall asleep is because we're trying to figure that thing out. I've spoken to so many people who are my age, younger, older, much older, and they're still saying, innately, I know there's something else. There's a little more, but I'm just trying to find what it is. I'm trying to nail it down,
Be still and know.
The reason why I'm saying that is because I tell my son all the time, and this is to your point that you were talking about. I tell my son all the time, because just like other children, he's chasing things, right? The brands and everything like that. And I said to him, let me tell you something. Whatever your purpose is, when you figure it out, it's always geared towards helping others. The reason why is because God created us in a way that gives us a certain amount of satisfaction when we put a smile on someone else's face. The greatest satisfaction you will ever get as a human being is when you make someone else happy. And I drill that into my children because I want them to understand that life is not just about the acquisition of things. The nice car, the home, the picket fence, the nice doggies.
I feel like you want to say that again, but I feel you want to say it to the camera. I feel people need to hear it. They need to connect with you as you're saying that.
Life is not about things. Life, as a matter of fact, is about others. Life is about others and how we can serve others. And that's how we get the greatest satisfaction that we can ever get in our life, when we put a smile on someone else's face. So therefore, we now have to try and figure out, okay, what is it? Because even scientists, before I say that, even scientists have come up with this term now that they call neuroplasticity. You probably know about that, right? And that simply speaks to the fact that we can train our brain and train our mind in a certain way, right? But if you check the Bible, back in the Bible, one of the things that Paul, the apostle, said is, hey, whatsoever things are good, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things have a good report, think on those things. So back then, Paul was saying, think about what you think about.
Yeah.
And that's what neuroplasticity is really saying, Think about what you think about, or train your thinking in a way that brings positivity to your life. And that's one of the reasons why, as I said before, when people ask me how I'm doing, I always say excellent. Because I believe in the mental law of correspondence. It states we don't sing because we are happy because we sing. So you make the situation happen. You create it. It's like the term abracadabra, which is Arabic. That actually means I create as I speak. I create as I speak. Abracadabra is not magic, but it actually happens. We create as we speak because we were created in the image and likeness of God.
You learned something there today, you answer. You didn't know that.
So we have the ability to create as we speak. So I teach my children a lot about what they say, what they release out of their mouth, what they affirm, what comes out of here, because we all are familiar with the phrase, death and life is in the power of the tongue, right? Right. So based on that now, let's go to the book. God gave me 7 chapters to write about when he downloaded the idea for this book into my spirit. I was sitting by my desk, minding my business, 6 o'clock one morning, and it just came, whoosh, write a book, respond with class, 7 chapters, and I wrote it down. The very first chapter is know your identity. Why know your identity? Because the first step in understanding this life that we live in is we need to know who we are. Who we are. The second chapter is know your purpose. That speaks to why we are here. And then the third chapter is know your destiny. Where are you going after this life? Where are you going? And it's something that we all want to know. It's something that has eluded a lot of us. But I have to say, thank God that I am one of the few people. I jokingly tell people all the time, if there's 100 people in this building right now and 2 people know their purpose, I am the other person. I am the other person. And I know God created me to be an inspiration, not just to people in general, but to young people in particular. Because I firmly believe that to get people to change their behavior, because that's what we're talking about. We're asking the question now, how could we be better as men? How could we change? How could we do things differently? To get people to change how they behave, you first have to get them to change the way they think. And that's why we have stuff like this. There is someone that is going to hear this conversation today that is going to go and sit down and say, hey, you know what? I really need to start thinking this way. And as a result, their actions are going to start to follow after that. We've heard it all the time about life, right? Life is what?
This
sum
guy.
total.
This guy.
The sum total of what? Your thoughts, right? So it starts with the thinking. So know your identity, know your purpose, know your destiny, and then live by choice. After you identify with these 3 things, then the greatest gift that God has given to us is what? Choice. The power of choice. We can choose whatever. We can choose whatever we like and go after that with passion. Live by choice. And then the next chapter is come to change. When you get to the place where you understand that you can choose whatever you want, you realize that your life begins to change because you're now making your decisions. You're no longer controlled. It's like the Matrix. It's no longer the Matrix controlling you. Because I don't know if you remember, this is my favorite movie of all time. Because Morpheus asked Neo, he said, do you believe in fate? And he said, no. He said, why? Because I don't like the idea of not being in control of my own life. And that is what choice gives us, control. We have the power to choose. Not just what we want, but more than anything, how we respond to life's adversities. That's our choice. Today, all of us could face, 4 of us can face the same exact adversity after this session. And we can have 4 different outcomes because you chose to respond to the same scenario one way. You chose to respond to the same scenario one way. You chose to respond to the same scenario one way. And I chose to respond to the same scenario one way. And if I was to use an example, if I was to leave here today and I go across to my job and they say, hey, Stephen, we're restructuring, we don't need you anymore. We were just talking about that before. One of the first thoughts that came to me a couple of years ago when I realized that my job was kind of on the line was, hey, I need to go and jump off of a building. That is not going to happen now. I'm in a different place now. I'm thinking differently now. So if something like that was to happen now, I'm going to regroup. I'm going to restart. I'm like, okay, when you hit rock bottom, there's only one way to go, up. Father God, what do you have for me next? That is my thinking now. And that's what I'm saying. That's why thinking is so important. That's why we have to get men to think differently so that they can act differently. The other chapter is influence change in people. And that word influence was very specific, not force change in people. You can influence and cause people to change by the example that you set. And that's what we're supposed to do as men and as leaders. We are supposed to lead by example. Our children are supposed to see us. And that's why I missed the opportunity to hug my son. I should have run into him and squeezed the daylights out of him. And let him feel that connection, that love. I missed the opportunity, but again, I'm so glad we're doing this because I'm human. I'm not Superman. I'm not perfect. I know a lot. I have some knowledge, but I'm not perfect. I still miss the moment. What am I going to do? Am I going to say, all right, I missed the moment, I'll leave it right there? No. Now that we have the conversation here, I'm going to go home and look for the opportunity. Hey, son, I forget to do something when you came. Come.
One time, bear hug.
Bear hug. And fix it. And that's what I mean when I say, no, we have to choose the way we respond. That's why the subtitle of the book is Rethinking. Rethinking. Rewire. Neuroplasticity. Rethinking the way you respond to life's daily challenges. When you start to think differently about adversity and and challenges, when it comes and when it happens, even if in the moment, impulsively, you say, oh my God, what's going on here, da 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 da. And it happens to me even now. Something negative will happen, and in the moment I would go, ugh. But then I quickly gather myself and I say, you know what? No. I am in control. I have the power to choose how I am going to respond to this scenario. And that's what responding with class is about. It means choosing the right response to any adversity or negative situation that you face.
I just spoke about neuroplasticity. We're going to have to rework some of the programming when this airs because of the extent. But it is all meaningful. It is all relevant and justifies the extension of this particular episode. I want to give everybody a moment to give their closing thoughts. Keron, let's start with you.
Start with me. Hug your sons. Think about your thinking and interrogate your feelings. And the thing that I had started off that with is the age of chasing labels and titles is done. And it has to end with this generation, because if it doesn't, the algorithm will end it for us with the next generation, and it will not end well. There are no happy endings to chasing labels. There is no, even if you buy the Porsche, you want to modify it. You want something else. There's always a new and nicer toy. And sometimes, if we're not careful, people become those toys as well, that we try to achieve. We don't want trophy women. We want companionship that is meaningful. And how do we define meaningfulness in our lives? By really tying it into why we're here in the first place and what we're trying to achieve. And you might be watching this episode thinking to yourself, yeah, there's nothing meaningful about what I do. And I know that some men today are stuck in jobs that they hate. I know that some men hate what they do and find it to be entirely meaningless. And I have to kind of tie that back into something that your answer said earlier when he said, like, we're saying what it is, but we're not saying it's going to be easy, and we're not saying it's not complex. There is complexity in what we're saying. Like he said, it's easier said than done. Just do what makes you happy. Doing what makes you happy does not mean that you're going to do what makes you wealthy. I know that all too well. I work with artists, many of whom have amazing talent, but the talent that they have is not reflected in their bank account for many reasons. But do what makes you happy is a starting point to interrogate what you're doing now and how you plan your tomorrow. So you can at least, you may not be doing what makes you happy like as a job, as a full-time yet, but if you begin to build it into your life, if you begin to ask yourself, why am I here? How can I do things more purposefully? It may actually mean going to a school with Stephen, starting off like going to talk to students, going to talk to young boys, like once a week, once a month. And when you increase it, you realize, and somebody will see you doing it and be like, oh, you want to come and do this session for me? Like, I'll pay you. You understand? This is how these things are. And except for my own life, like I went to a seminar I didn't really want to go to. I asked one question. I ended up working in Barbados for 2 years. Because the person I asked the question to was just like, that was a really good question. Do you want to come to Barbados and work with me? And I was just like, sure. It was one of the most senior academics in my field at the time. So one step at a time, take the pressure off yourself. We're not talking about, I know I like cheetahs, but not everything is a race. You understand? So
Cheetah, the animal.
The animal. Yes, I like cheetahs, the animal, the mammal. Yeah, the cats. But on a real, not everything is a race. It's not about speed, it's about doing something that's meaningful to you. That's it for me.
Ironically, you mentioned it's not about speed, but you're like the cheetah, fastest animal. But
Yeah, I know.
but just to reiterate to everyone that's listening on as well, as you coined that particular phrase, that this is a message. This is just how it is. This is not the oppression Olympics. I'd like that word in. You want to say?
We always hear that men are simple creatures, and I agree with that in the most sense. Yes, they are complexity states, but are using simple because, and I'm piggybacking on your point, if you only aim to do the thing that makes you happy, you will become a master in it. You will become an innovator in it. So therefore, even if right now we don't have a place for you in the world that you could see, if you continue at it, you will create that place. Right? And I don't even have to give any examples. We have enough examples in this world about people who I stuck to it, even though all the quote unquote odds were against me, even though I was advised against it, but I stayed with it, and now look where it is. And each one of us different. So therefore, even if I any same feel as someone else, it wouldn't look the same as you or that person or favorite athlete or whatever it is. But if you stick at it, you will become the master at it, and therefore you will find that fulfillment. Because I think if we were to say what hell is, an example of what hell is living a life of unfulfillment. You have all these things, but yet you still can't be happy.
So, Stephen, I want you to close, and I want you to also share. You know, we keep talking about the book, but we haven't shared where you could get the book. And I think it's important that people do read it and the various messages that in there, from getting to that point where many of us either knowingly, consciously, or subconsciously may be building to. This is our pressure cooker. The strains, the trials and tribulations as men we go through. And as we keep pointing out, this is not the oppression Olympics. We're talking as men and what the pressures on men to be men and what is perceived to be men, because we're talking about these labels, which are not just the Nikes, not just the Jordans, the labels of what you're supposed to do. And when that is perceived to you're not living up to that, ask yourself, are you with the right partner? Are you in the right surroundings? Are you in the right community? Because if you are living in that lie, living in that place of hiding or feeling less than, when you're putting out more than, or you're putting out your best, and it is not meeting that perceived standard, then maybe if you can't, as they say, if you can't change the people, change the people. And I like that when you say what God told you. One of the other blessings I would share with you, Stephen, is I always hear people get that zap. And like you said, you know, if there are two people in this entire building, you're one of those. And I always wonder what that's like and want to feel that. But more so to also know what your purpose is. Because a lot of times you think, this must be my purpose, this must be my calling. If you are an Olympic champion or world champion, you think, well, he was born to do that. When the reality is, what your purpose could simply be is that you've said something or you've done something or you've been in an environment that inspires somebody else to go and make other people happy or change something in a particular community. And to touch on when you talk about respond with class is also about maintaining your control. Because yes, we may all react differently, but if we all react with that level of control, it means we're not out of control. We've not given up our control, and we're remaining with those levels of serotonin that we're supposed to have to keep us calm, to keep us as men, and we're not reacting, overreacting, that then brings off that, well, he must be angry. Or he's fine at this point until he's not fine. That there's that perception. And I would close from my part to say that there are two things that keep me going, that I've learned from persons, that I've seen in my own life, in my own period of darkness. This too shall pass. It really will. And to keep you going, just say to yourself, just for today, we're going to get past this. And as you mentioned, Stephen, about getting up, and I say this on several times on the show, if you fall down, make sure you fall up, because if you could look up, you could get up. I want you to have your closing thoughts, but also to let people know where they could get the book.
Absolutely. I think the most important thing I want to leave is that I am still growing. You know, sometimes people look again at your life and they think, okay, you wrote a book, you know, you've been married for a long time, you know, 1 woman, 6 children, a nice job, but I'm still growing. I'm still growing. I still face challenges every day. And that's why one of the points that I made before is about choice. We have a choice on how we respond to whatever happens to us. And that's why the last thing I want to share is the greatest lesson that I've ever learned in life. It came from a quote from an author called Booker T. Washington, which I'm sure we all know. It was in a book that I read called Think and Grow Rich. I'm sure we all know this book.
Mm-hmm.
And Booker T. Washington said this: the circumstances that surrounds a man's life is not important. What is important is how he responds. And again, that speaks to the fact that life is going to life. Life is going to happen. And life for us as men is difficult. It's hard. It's tough. But at the end of the day, we still have a choice on how we respond to whatever happens to us. And what we want to do is respond with class. And that means make the right choice. Respond with positivity to every negative situation that you face. Turn every negative situation. Have the mindset that I'm going to turn whatever negative situation that I face today, for the rest of this day, tomorrow, for the rest of this week, whatever negative situation that I face again in my life, I'm going to choose my response to it. Now, it's not always easy, but it's not impossible that we can actually choose. Sometimes we are impulsive, sometimes, and that means we react in the moment, but we still have the opportunity to come back and fix it. But that too is a choice. We have to decide and be intentional about it. Like how I'm going to go home now and intentionally hug my son. Mm-hmm. We have that choice at the end of the day. Still, no matter what we're going through, we always have a choice on how we respond, and respond with class. And if you want to know a little bit more about this book, you can get it at Charon's. And if you don't get it at Charon's, you can contact me directly. And I have copies.
Is it on Amazon?
Sorry?
It's online?
And it's also on Amazon. It's also on Amazon.
So the same way they could contact you, what it means that they'll call me to get your number?
You have an email address?
Yeah, you have a contact information. Anything,
contact information.
I don't mind giving my number. I gladly
or
give my
a social media page, anything.
Any other way
people could
maybe
contact
email.
you.
Email address or social media.
You didn't want people coming to the Hyatt looking for you.
No, but I actually like speaking to people. So what I'll do is I'll give you my number. People can contact you, and then you.
I have your number. That's why you're on the show. That's the one.
Right.
You know, this been another excellent one, guys. A lot to unpack here. This is manhood. Johan says, Stephen, Keron. Fine or angry, not the oppression Olympics. Be your brother's keeper. This is a space of courage. We're not always fine. We're not always fine. We are human. Make the right choice. And remember, as Stephen had the blessing to be told, whether you are told, whether you are still a no, God is with you always.
Yes, voice of the miserable one here, Jazzy Blaze, representing for manhood. And this is a letter to Mama. Cheese. Right now me under pressure, but one day Jah go make it better. Yeah. Mama teach me to be a go-getter, get up every day and face the weather. Yeah. So to you me write this letter, to ease my mind and refrain from getting bitter. Experience are the greatest teacher, and Mama, you coming after well, yeah. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard the struggle I go get me, why you know say that your baby I go make it for sure, yeah. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard this struggle I go get me, why you know say that your baby I go make it for sure. Listen, lately, tryna keep myself from acting hasty. A lot of forces out here, them against me. Some of them my friend, some of them even family. What on me enemy, but mama me done picture you telling me. Don't stoop to the level, just keep it steady. But sometimes the fool them a test me so much. Me get charge up like battery ever ready. So mama just keep on praying for me. Your prayers never fail, them a work for me. The kind of love that you share keep the hurt from me. Ain't there a treasure can compare your word to me? That's why I sing. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard this struggle I go get me, why you know say that your baby I go make it for sure. Oh yeah. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard this struggle I go get me, why you know Jazzy I go make it for sure. Sometimes it get even more difficult the more I pray. Get booked for shows and not get no pay. Give DJs me music, not get no play. No matter the lyrics, the quality and melody. Ask myself what me doing wrong. So me say a word of praise before me record every song. Jah know how much me want make it, and it seem like my life and talent them want take it. But mama, I'm a warrior. Me use your teachings and broke down every barrier. My love for you wide like the Gulf of Paria. Me appreciate the little phone calls you give once in a while, and they make me smile. And in times when my pocket empty, you make it your duty if you come check me and put some 100 in my clothes. Mama, when we make it, your bank account all and your purse can close. Pray that Jah gives you long life and always keep you safe in the days, in the dark nights. Everything will be alright, mama. Sing that chorus one more time. Oh no, no, no. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard this struggle I go get me, why you know, yeah, baby, I go make it for sure. Whoa, 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 yeah. Mama, don't worry no more. Mama, don't worry no more. No matter how hard this struggle I go get me, why you know, yeah, baby, I go make it for sure. Whoa, oh, yeah. Yes, I. Mama, me love you, you know. To my heart and soul.
Manhood, brought to you in part by Lucas Aid and Solomon's Bespoke.